There's like an intro, right?
No. Welcome to the ASMR version of the reality operating system with your host, Tracy Connors, and we're joined today with Lauren.
Hi.
Hi. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Peter.
What are we doing, Tracy?
We were just playing around with ASMR. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, we're trying to make a video that puts people to sleep.
Yes.
Or at least lulls them into the idea that they are asleep, and then we put psychotronic suggestions into their psyche, right? So that when you wake up the next morning, you have all these ideas that you didn't know that you had when you went to bed.
Exactly.
That's deep, man.
It's all deep.
It is very deep.
So how is your week, Lauren?
It's been good. It's very cold in North Alabama right now, so nobody knows what to do. So that's fun.
I see a literal cattail in the shot there.
She never wants to bother me until it's time to live stream. I swear, she's normally just like asleep, taking a nap. But there's something about I get the camera set up and she's like,
yeah.
Hello.
It's the attention thing.
Yeah, it is.
Well, it's cold in the entire center of the country right now, right?
Yeah.
It's like I made a glib tweet this morning about, is this a bioweapon prepping us for smart cities?
Dark winter.
Yeah. That's right, dark winter. Forgot about that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it seemed to be dark. My buddy Lee Stranahan sent me a late night tweet the other night, wanting to know if I was going to go to CPAC. Primarily, probably because it's in Florida and it's warm in Florida, or warmer in Florida. Anyway,
seems like a good state to be in right now, to be honest.
Yeah, but it's in Orlando.
Oh, ew. Nothing against Orlando, but you know.
I don't know. Central Florida is it's like getting into a video game, Grand Theft Auto.
It is.
Because there's no mom and pop anything. Everything is a branded thing. You go to every mall, it's exactly the same as every other mall. All of the waiters in the restaurants, they all do the Disney three-fingered point thing. You know what I'm talking about?
They do, yeah.
Is that because Mickey only has 3 fingers?
No, it's because some sociologist who was working for Disney found out that it's rude. It's rude to point with one finger in certain cultures. So they came up with this way that you point with 3 fingers. And no one who's a quote-unquote cast member who works for Disney is allowed to point like this. It's rude. You have to do it like this. And what's weird is that for 100 miles around Disney World, all of the people who work in all of the branded outlet franchises all act as if they've been trained at Disney World, because they probably have. They probably all got their jobs there when they were 16 years old and then moved on to some other place. But even people who work in hospitals, they do
Everybody
that.
does the point.
They do that Disney thing. Yeah, it's really weird.
I mean, I know Disney's all evil and everything, but some of the best times I've ever had was at Disney World. I mean, they do hospitality really well. So,
it's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
That's what it is. I didn't know.
I've worked with many Imagineers.
Really?
Yes, in my past careers.
I got fired from a job that the Disney designed the training program, and I wasn't happy enough at work. Literally, I wasn't smiling enough at work, and so they fired me.
Isn't that a scene out of the movie Office Space?
It basically felt like one. Yeah. Sorry, I'm moving around my screens a little bit. It basically is, but that was a requirement there. I set records for that company. I had a flawless system going, but I was not quote unquote happy enough for the overlords, and they let me go. So that was a very, I would say, humbling experience, but I was just mostly mad after that. You can do everything right, but because it's the joke that every woman makes, but resting bitch face. I don't look happy when I'm just focused, but I'm fine, but not for Disney. They didn't like it.
So really? So did they write you up for that?
They did. I had like 2 different write-ups for it, and each time it felt like it wasn't as big of a deal as it was. But I learned that this was like my first foray into like corporate style programs and management teams and all that. And they have, I mean, you know, it is what it is, but they have their little book, they stick to it, and if you deviate from it, they'll let you go. So I learned that the hard way. I thought working hard and having a can-do attitude would get me anywhere, but my dad lied to me, and that was not the case. So.
I just think that if I had an HR report saying that I was being written up for not being happy enough, I'd probably frame that, you know, or I'd stick it with a magnet on my refrigerator or something as a badge of honor. It's like, come on, really? What are you talking about?
I still have it somewhere, actually. I should. That's funny. That was more than 5 years ago now, but that was like right when I graduated from college and decided to finally kind of like move into something not, I was a bartender during college, and then afterwards I kept bartending because I didn't know what I wanted to do next. Sorry, I'm talking fast. And so that was like my first foray into not bartending and doing something neat. And it went swimmingly, as you can tell.
Were you a happy bartender?
I loved bartending. I thought bartending was awesome. I worked at like it was a very small pub, and we had a group of regulars. It was like the same 15 people at the bar every single day. So it was like Cheers kind of, but it was a Mellow Mushroom, but you know.
Was that the name of the bar?
Yeah, it's a Southern pizza chain, so it's like kind of hippie style. Right. Yeah, I worked for Mellow Mushroom for like 6 years.
Mellow Mushroom.
Yeah, it's good.
So what are we talking about today, Tracy?
Well, I had an idea this morning in the shower, where most good ideas come, and I thought, what are we going to call this week's episode? And Michael Malice had made these T-shirts a while ago, and you can still find them if you Google Michael Malice, Governors to Gitmo. And he was running around doing that and wearing that T-shirt when he was on Timcast in real life. And I thought, you know what? Cuomo deserves to go to Gitmo after what we found out this week. And I figured Lauren's done more research on this than either you or I have, Peter. So yeah. I would love to have her on to pick her brain and see what she knows that we don't know.
Well, yeah. I mean, what's great about the kind of federated citizen journalist world is that you can find experts on all kinds of different rabbit holes, and trying to depend on. Say again.
Cuomo's been in my viewfinder for a year now, basically. So
what do we know, Lauren?
Oh gosh. Well, so this week they came on the record and said that, of course, they were fudging the numbers, which we knew that the whole time. But this goes back way more to who Cuomo surrounds himself with and who like finances his campaign. Oh my God, cat. Sorry, just tossing her.
Are you sure your cat doesn't work for Cuomo?
She works for no man and no woman. She is her own feline. I found her in the parking lot of a Burger King, and it's been fun ever since.
She behaves as one would expect a cat found
She's
in the
a burger
cat.
cat.
Burger King would.
No, she's like 7, but she's a really good cat. She mostly just sleeps, but I swear every time I get in front of her,
unless you're talking about Cuomo.
Cuomo, right?
Yeah.
Are you deep state? No, I'm just kidding. But the thing with Cuomo is it's who he surrounds himself with, and the person that no one ever really talks about is his right-hand woman. Everyone always just refers to her as his top aide. And I'm not saying this for like feminism's sake, but people need to know her name because she pulls all the strings or is connected to all of the people that pull the strings that happen in New York City. I mean, seriously, this girl is so well connected. It's insane. And everyone just refers to her as Cuomo's aide. And I find that very frustrating because people need to know her name. Her name is Melissa DeRosa, and she is bad news.
And talk about resting bitch face, not to interrupt you, but every photo that I saw of her, it was like, whoa.
She's a serious
If I needed to explain that to a boomer, I would just be like, here you go.
Right.
Look at Melissa DeRosa.
Well, I mean, for what it's worth, while I think that everything that she is connected with and everything that she's done is abhorrent, I admire how much she has gotten done in her life. You can admire someone while still disagreeing with them. I mean that just because she is a bulldog of a human being, but they are in charge. they're in charge of like the cell phone plans for their prisoners in New York. They're in charge of the pharmaceutical plan for New York State. They're in charge of her father, Giorgio DeRosa, is the biggest pharma lobbyist in New York, and he is.
I just wanted to throw her on the screen.
But she's always with him. She's always right behind him. And a few years ago, people kind of raised some eyebrows because of how well connected she is. Also, her husband, this is either her husband or her brother-in-law. No, it's her husband. Sorry. Her husband is an executive for Uber, and they got an exclusive contract with New York to be able to, this was a while back, but in order to be able to get like the most of the rideshare, I guess, like the biggest slice, you're right, like the biggest slice of the pie back when that was like, can you let Uber come in on like taxi territory? Like Uber got the lion's share of it because of him and her. So anytime you see Cuomo doing anything, it's Melissa DeRosa basically doing it, or the people surrounding her. Like, he's absolutely a puppet because they're fundraising inadvertently. The people that they are connected to fund over half of Cuomo and the New York State Democrats' campaign funds or finances. Like they account for over half of it. So pretty much anything that they want, they get because they get them elected.
Right, they're the 800-pound financial gorilla.
They're huge. And actually, this was when Cuomo was running against, what was her name from Sex and the City?
Cynthia Nixon.
Yeah, when he was running against Cynthia Nixon, the Greater New York Hospital Association put in a last-minute donation to Cuomo to kind of help put him over the edge against her because she was very progressive and she was like doing pretty well for a while, but he had way more money than her. She had, fame and all that, but at the end of the day, it's money and influence that you need, and she didn't have enough of it compared to him. And it was their hospital system that paid for it, basically.
Of course. And so this all came to light this week because of a conversation, if I've got this right, that Melissa had with Democrat lawmakers in the state assembly back in September that they're now just leaking out portions of.
Right. I am not familiar with what exactly was said this week, I'll be honest. I read over it and just couldn't believe that she was coming up again in anything. But because I've written about her, I did like a 10-minute, I don't want to say short film, but just like kind of like putting it all together because it's very complicated. Like the subject matter is pretty complicated. It's not super intuitive. It's not something that you can just like sit down and read in 5 minutes and go, oh, I feel like I understand that. Like it's a very complicated web that they're weaving, and it's by design so that people don't. Basically, with anything that any trail I'm tracking down or researching, it's always people who, by design, make it almost impossible to track the money trail. And this is no different by far. I mean, there's a lot of names on it, a lot of people associated with people, a lot of people that know the right people, but when you look at it, when you look at all the individual parts as a whole, it's pretty apparent.
That would be an argument for blockchain in politics. The interesting thing is about blockchain is that the ledger is public, right? So
I don't know anything about it, so I don't know.
So the way that cryptocurrencies, the way that Bitcoin works, other cryptocurrencies work different ways. But you hear this word thrown around, blockchain, which is basically what that means is that there is a public ledger. So if I want to send Lauren some Bitcoin, Lauren's Bitcoin address.
I don't have any Bitcoins, so
yeah. If you had a Bitcoin wallet, we could put the wallet in the description below. But
I tried to set one up one time. It was very complicated.
Yeah,
I'll send you an app that'll set you up in a couple minutes.
Thanks, girl.
So if the thing is about Bitcoin is that if I sent you Bitcoin and somebody knew what my wallet number was and somebody knew what your wallet number was, they would know how much money that I gave you. Because even though the wallets are anonymous somewhat in the Bitcoin world, the transactions are completely transparent, which is why I subscribe to a Twitter feed that's whale_alerts, which shows you whenever somebody is transferring over a certain threshold. I think it's over $1 million.
Okay.
From
did
one
that guy that got logged out of his account, or he had like 3 password guesses left, did he get in? Does anyone know?
I don't know
that.
I don't
there was
know,
a guy that had like $200 million in Bitcoin, and he had like 2 more login chances.
Oh God! Somebody in the comments will know here.
Yeah, well, that's why, trusting technology. Here's the thing about Bitcoin. You can just print out your Bitcoin and not keep it in a wallet. You could keep it in a safe deposit box if you wanted to. You wouldn't
Just
have
like
to
the
have
number?
Yeah.
Huh.
But the thing is that I would say that the week before the election, I noticed probably about $2 billion going through whale alerts in 10 million, 25 million, $50 million. Like there were all of these transactions going all over the place. And then right before the January 6th thing, I think there was about another $1 billion in transactions in Bitcoin that day. So, and then you've got all of these. You've got all of these tech billionaires, Elon Musk and Apple, and all these people announcing that they're investigating whether or not they're going to start supporting Bitcoin. And I'm thinking, where are you buying the Bitcoin from? Are you going to Coinbase and buying it, or do you know somebody who happens to have a couple hundred Bitcoin because they were running some operations in November and January? And
I guess the answer to that is you won't know.
They're coming over to your house with their iPhone and a large trash bag to take their money away.
Right. So you make a good point, Peter. It'd be interesting to put all campaign financing on the blockchain.
Yep.
Is that way you would know everybody who gave money?
Well, you would know where all of the money was going in, and then you would know where all the money is going out. You wouldn't necessarily know where it was going, but you could ask. You could track it somehow.
They have to file FEC reports anyway to keep track, in theory, of every dollar. This would be good for charities too. Imagine with the Clinton Foundation, what kind of a leash that would put on those guys.
Yeah, I mean,
you can read the 990 PFs are pretty detailed, but people don't take the time to read them.
Right. Yeah, they are. That's what I'm saying. But you don't have anything to back it up. Like somebody, for example, Bernie Sanders' wife ran this whole kind of scheme. At least this is alleged by Peter Schweitzer in his book, which something corruption, I'll think, Profiles in Corruption. She had her friends set up an ad company that was placing all the media buys for Bernie. So this is why he doesn't drop out. He keeps fundraising, buying media. Who knows what her cut is, but it's a big money laundry.
Well, same thing with like Ilhan Omar and her lover man.
Right. So that would all be legitimate. We would see the 990s and it looks clean. Right. But when you dig in, this is what you're saying. You got to dig in and figure out who these people are and how they're connected.
Well, that's I use followthemoney.org for a lot of my money tracking needs. But yeah, it would be a lot easier, I guess, if it was all standardized and laid out bare. But
yeah, one of the trademarks, I think, of things like we were talking about last week, like the Democracy Alliance, is that it's kind of a way to get around all of that filing stuff, because what you do is you get a bunch of people who need money in the same room with a bunch of people who can write checks, and then you just kind of introduce them to each other. And so you don't really have to formally be a broker. You're just, buying people drinks and introducing them to each other, and that way it gets manipulated that way. Yeah, there's always, whatever system you come up with, there's always going to be a way around it. But, the harder you make it, the more obvious it becomes when people are doing things like that.
Well, I don't think the people that write the tax code you have the lobbyists write like tax code and laws and loopholes or whatever should be privy to all of the laws and loopholes that, I don't know. I mean, they write it for themselves basically. So.
Right. And the question is wouldn't you, if you were in that position?
I mean, I would do a lot of things differently than how our government does things. So if I was able to just take a red pen and slash the budget to ribbons, I would be happy. So,
yeah, it's funny because I guess last week somebody announced in Nevada that if you had $1.5 billion and enough acreage, you could basically start your own little country or something in city in Nevada. And so I think Whitney Webb was outraged by that. But Tracy, you seem to think it was a great idea. You wanted to talk about that?
I'd like to get $1 billion+ and have my own city.
Yeah.
With my own schools, and I'll build the damn roads and raise your own taxes. And if you did it, you could do blockchain city. You could be on the Ethereum thing, have your own damn coins. This is our own money. But very little little rules. Get the state out of your business as much as possible. So
why Ethereum instead of Tracium?
Well, I want to be on the Ethereum chain. We can call it Tracium. I'm not that much of an egomaniac, though.
Tracium.
No, you call it like Utopia, Nevada.
Utopia, Nevada. You have big Karl Marx statues.
I have the inverse to it. I own metopia.com. That was always my thing. I don't want to live in utopia. That sounds like a place you like. I want everybody to be happy. So you pursue your own dreams in metopia.
Metopia.
Yeah. There's a city. I think it's in Iowa. I'm not sure. It sounds like something that would happen in Iowa, but there's a city in, I think, Iowa that has declared itself independent from the United States, but it's not really. They like pay taxes and they call it like foreign aid, and they've declared war on like East Germany. I was learning that the other day. This is but it's like a city of I think like 50 or something people, but good for them.
Well, on the license plates in Washington D.C., they all say taxation without representation.
What?
Because they're not a state.
They're not a state,
and they have a member of Congress, but it's more like the territories. They don't get to vote on anything. They just get to be there and run their mouths. Yeah,
it's funny when you're sitting in DC looking at that stuff. It's like
I haven't been to DC in 15 years, and the last time I went, I fed the squirrels on Capitol Hill for a long time. And
you mean the Congress people?
No, well. I was a child I was like probably 14 or something like that. So we were super excited and wide-eyed and thinking this is where dreams come true and magic is made. And in hindsight,
well, it is magic. It's just not the kind of magic you thought it was.
Right, smoke and mirrors more right. So.
Left-hand path magic.
Well, it was a party there on the 6th, though.
Well, I didn't get to make it.
It was a little cold, but.
Is it colder now, or was it colder then?
Oh, it was cold then, and I was telling Tracy earlier when I was there for the events in Washington D.C. at the beginning of the year. It was like camping. I literally brought granola and instant oatmeal and a bunch of stuff that I could basically cook with hot water, instant soup and stuff.
MREs.
Yes.
Because there was no place to eat. They had closed all of the restaurants. It was like you were in a war zone or something. And I guess Jack Posobiec is now describing DC as the green zone. He works inside the green zone, inside the ribbon wire there.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, maybe it can come down now because supposedly that was just to keep them protected during impeachment.
No, they're saying it's through the end of the year now.
Yeah, they're saying till the end of the year. And they're also talking about people keeping masks on for 7 years.
I know.
That's New Zealand. Just a day or two ago, 3 people came up positive with COVID, and they're doing like a full-fledged, full-blown, like 5-alarm lockdown. And it just goes to show you that 3 cases in the whole island, whatever, like no matter what happens, it will never be enough. They will always find a reason to lock back down.
3 cases with a disease that has a 99.997% recovery rate.
That people are presumably vaccinated for, wearing masks against, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, at some point, it's for people who know, it's exceedingly transparent what they're doing. But for people who are just thanking the government for taking away their rights and feeling safe about it, it's
No, and it brings us
I try not to think about it too much, to be honest.
To Cuomo. And maybe this ends the madness. The fact that that's now come out, and that it was Democrat lawmakers that she was explaining this to in September. So she got on a call with the Democrats in the state assembly to explain that they were fudging the numbers because they were afraid of Trump. This is in August. They were scared that he was going to send the DOJ after them. So they hid the evidence. That seems like a really rational way to behave when you're like, we might get investigated. I know what we're going to do.
Right. I mean, Cuomo he did the same thing as the health secretary person. He pulled his own mother out of a nursing home before he did sign the order to send people into nursing homes. I mean, they knew what they were doing. Mm-hmm. They knew exactly what they were doing, but he was emphasizing before COVID, quote unquote, took off in New York, because it never really took off the way they said that it did. But they wanted beds. They wanted hospital beds because they were paying for them to be outfitted and to be ready. So if they got people out of the hospitals, that was more money that they could take in for funding. And so that's what they did. They forced people out, and it raised money for the Greater New York Hospital Association. He signed protective legislation and backdated it through the beginning of the year so that they weren't liable for any sort of hold on, let me scroll down this page real quick. But basically,
you put that up here, Lauren?
Yeah, let me pull it up and I'll zoom it in. This is on my website, by the way, for anyone who's watching.
And what's your URL?
Somebitchtoldme.com. Okay, hold on.
So what you're saying right then about the hospitals, you're saying they were trying to have a high churn rate. Well, people come in, they get...
Well, they were...
they kick them out fast to fill the bed again?
To fill the beds, and because they were bringing in... Oh, you have it on the screen? Okay, cool. I'm trying to find real quick. I mean, they gouged the pricing. God, 36,000 people have read this. That's amazing. That's amazing. They gouged the pricing. Hold on, I'm trying to find it. This is where, hold on.
Is that what you wanted to show, Peter?
I did. But I didn't want to block Lauren.
This was as of May 25th, 2020. This was different protections, immunity protections for nursing homes. And you'll see here, New York and New Jersey are the only two states as of May of last year. Granted, I did a lot of this research last year, but it's holding up like a fine wine. It actually gets better with time, actually. I feel very vindicated by this. But New York and New Jersey are the only two that have they have protection for criminal liability as well. So there's really no path. There's no way forward in New York State or in New Jersey, which Melissa's dad also operates in New Jersey. There's no path forward for people to be able to sue these nursing homes for what happened to their family. I mean, there's really no path forward. And that's the most frustrating thing, is that we can tell people all day what happened. I can show the money trail, but I really don't think that there's a lot that can happen.
Well, they can sue the state. That's what they'll end up doing. Well, I mean, think about it. Anytime that there's something with cops and somebody gets shot by cops, what ends up happening is the state cuts them a check, or the city cuts them a check. So that's where this is going.
Well, in essence, it's racketeering, right? What we're talking about is a RICO violation.
Yeah. So this was I'm looking at to the state camp. It's almost, I mean,
and who is this that we're looking at giving money to the state?
This is the Greater New York Hospital Association funding for the New York State Democratic Committee. So this is all the Democrats. It's like it's their housekeeping committee. It's almost like they knew this was going to happen. And of course, put your tinfoil hat on or all that. But they, in 2018, all of a sudden, the red part here is their amount of funding and I mean, in years past, they had donated, this is even just this little bar is a substantial amount, but they donated millions of dollars in 2018 to get him elected. And it's like they were setting up something for no good reason. And they got him elected. They got him elected over freaking Cynthia Nixon. There we go. Like, New York Democratic Party bankrolling Cuomo ads over Nixon. This was all happening right then.
Yeah, and she wasn't on the Democrat ticket, though, right? I mean, she was, but they cross-file in New York, so she was on some other tickets as well.
I think she was progressive.
I think they also have some like working families party or
maybe.
You always need a whack out on the edge of the Overton window in order to make the person that you want to put in look normal, right?
Yeah, she was pretty nutty.
So this is if you get on followthemoney.org, which is a site that I'm on all the time, I took screenshots of this. Is the Greater New York Hospital Association Management. I mean, they are donating. This was in 2019. This is for hospitals and nursing homes. They had an influx of, over $1 million in late 2019 mid 2019 in June. It's like the amount of money coming in from them was insane. And this is, hold on, let me open up this PDF here. This is the fatalities for nursing homes. Let's see if this will load. This gets updated every single, hasn't been updated since the 4th, but this is confirmed deaths at nursing homes per state, per county in the state. I mean, it's huge amounts. And then they have it listed out per, let me zoom this in.
And they've copped to about 15,000 at this point, I believe.
It's way more than that. It's way more than that. I mean, it has to be. Because, I mean, as you can see with like people who are dying after getting the vaccine, they'll come up with every single reason to say someone died from COVID unless it makes them look bad. And this of course makes them look bad because it was like a decision that they made it sentenced people to death.
Right. And you're not just flippantly saying that. There was an order from the government.
Yeah, it's shit. Hang on. Sorry. It's actually this order right here. They scrubbed it from the internet. It was ordered from the New York Department of Health, Andrew Cuomo, Howard Zucker, and Sally Dreslin. I've gotten into them a little bit more in this video, which is on my site if anyone wants to watch it. But they say right here, no resident shall be denied readmission or admission to the nursing home solely based on a confirmed or suspected diagnosis of COVID-19. Nursing homes are prohibited from requiring a hospitalized resident who is determined medically stable to be tested for COVID-19 prior to admission or readmission. So they didn't allow them to test them before they brought them back. Like they didn't even know if they were COVID positive. That was the worst part, is that they weren't even allowed to know what they were dealing with when people were coming back.
Which is the complete opposite. My sister is in an assisted living facility in San Francisco area, and that's the complete opposite of the protocols that they have. Like they're so hardcore, it's crazy.
Well, so this was back in March 25th of 2020, that's actually 5 days before my birthday, and I can remember because I had a lockdown birthday last year because it was kind of right as it was starting. So this was right as lockdown was starting, and they really had. If you go back and look at how they handled it, you can just see how much they didn't have a damn clue what they were doing.
How much they didn't or how much they did?
How much they didn't. Because, I mean,
right, but he's saying he's ascribing malice to them.
Oh, right.
Is what he's doing.
Okay, right. I mean, I don't think that they were intentionally, they did by proxy intentionally kill people. I think for the most part, it was just a way for them to pump as much federal and state money into the hospitals and into the pockets of those hospital association members' pockets as possible. I don't know if they realized how many people would actually die because at that time they were simultaneously telling everyone to like lock down and all that, but they're also kind of downplaying it and saying, we've got it under control. New York, they made some. Yeah.
So do we have the year-on-year death tolls in New York? Because Tony Robbins did a video a few days ago where he was talking about how the CDC numbers that he was looking at were flat. That is, there were no more. That for 2020, the total number of deaths in the United States did not increase over 2019 or 2018. It was flat or lower. Actually,
I haven't looked at the final numbers. I looked at it last fall was the last time I really started looking at these numbers, and it didn't seem like it was going to change that much, but I'd be curious to look at it now because the CDC, it's kind of like the same thing with flu season, which has of course disappeared, but they will retroactively.
We've cured the flu.
Right.
It's gone.
It's a miracle. Scientists are baffled how this could have happened. It's like once you like unplug yourself from the matrix and you start watching the news, it's laughable. Like when they tell you this stuff and you're just supposed to gobble that up and be like, I can't believe it. What a miracle.
Well, it's funny until you turn around and you look at the person who's sitting next to you on the sofa and they actually believe what's going on.
Is that you?
Yeah, that's me. I forgot to silence my phone. Sorry.
You're in trouble.
So Infidel Apostate is telling us it went down, that there were fewer deaths in 2020 than 2019.
Right. Even better.
Well, if you ask me, and I've been working on this behind the scenes for the last couple of weeks, like COVID and the numbers and all the nefarious demons behind all of this. There's another guy, his name is Peter Daszak, and I believe that he is, I mean, maybe not literally, but he's like the architect of all of this. Peter Daszak is the leader of the EcoHealth Alliance. He worked with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. He works with the UN, the WHO. He worked with the Wuhan Virology Lab, the NIAID, Dr. Fauci, whatever. I've been working really hard on this. I want to put it out this next week. That I believe personally that COVID-19, because the virus does exist in some form or another, that's not really up for debate, but I believe personally that the virus has been circulating around the world since late 2018. And if you actually go back and look at numbers and the way that different influenza-like illness numbers spiked in different countries during different times of the year, I think I can make a pretty damn strong case for it. And they wrote a paper back in I think they published it in 2017, but it was covering research they did in 2016, where they had already found a new coronavirus already circulating in humans. And it was in a province about 1,000 kilometers away from Wuhan. And it had to do with that cave. It had to do with everything. And they were like, Peter Daszak wrote this paper with the same people, like the same exact people. He wrote this paper saying there's a new coronavirus, and they have just magically forgotten that they wrote that now. And I think that was when it first emerged. And I think that they took it back to Wuhan and did some work on it. So that'll be dropping sometime this week.
There you go. Lauren, have you looked into what Dave Underdown suggesting, the WHO Blueprint Disease X?
Yep.
All right.
Oh, God, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. EcoHealth Alliance is a name I hear a lot.
It's the EcoHealth Alliance, and it's also the Global Virome Project, which is the Global Virome Project is something that Peter Daszak is also a part of. And their goal is to track down all the viruses in the world and catalog them so that we know where they are and where they come from. But that seems like a terrible idea.
Do they keep them next to that seed catalog thing that they have up in Norway? Is it up in Norway?
What's the name of that town? But I know the seed vault. Yeah.
Yeah, the seed vault. They have the seed vault, and then they have the virus vault. Yeah.
It's like, did anybody else read The Stand, or is it just me?
What's that?
The Stand, the Stephen King book.
Oh, I don't.
Which I think they just remade last year.
I haven't read it.
To fit into Peter's little rubric of the predictive programming. It's about this super flu that escapes from a lab and kills, 99.9% of the world's population. So you follow the characters that are left on Earth.
So going along with my theory, I think that there's a reason why in the last 5 years, you saw a lot more of the people like the Bill Gates and the Peter Daszaks of the world were getting on the record as often as they could and saying, I think there's a pandemic coming. We need to prepare for a pandemic or whatever. They didn't do that because they actually wanted to prepare for a pandemic. They did that because they knew that it was circulating around. And no, Kitty, no. Stay down. They knew that it was circulating around, and they knew that by putting that on the record over the last couple of years, that once this all did come to pass, they would look like oracles. And like they knew it, and they're the ones that we need to put all of our faith and trust in. But it's pretty transparent when you look at it.
And this Daszak guy, he was just there as part of the WHO's investigative team.
Well, I don't even know what his official capacity was recently. They talk about him like he's a WHO guy, but he's not. He worked with, like I said, the EcoHealth Alliance and was working with Johns Hopkins and all that. EcoHealth Foundation that plays proxy between governments. Yep. Pretty much. That's the whole thing. It's all of these unelected global institutions that are ruining, the world. So, yay.
No, it's fun, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's there was literally nothing on our state health department symptom watch list.
I remember that. Do you remember when they put out that infographic where it was side-by-side flu?
Peter Dashik. He blocked me out before I got axed on Twitter. He blocked me twice on 2 different accounts, so I felt very vindicated. Yeah. Like, he knows I know what's up.
Had you tweeted at him, or he just knew that you were running your mouth?
I tagged him and stuff all the time. I was like, what are you doing with Jeffrey Sachs and George Soros, man? And he blocked me. I know what he's up to.
Jeffrey Sachs?
Jeffrey Sachs is another bad guy. He was the special advisor to the last 3 directors general of the United Nations. He was for Kofi Annan, for the guy now, Andrea Guterres, and I'm missing someone in the middle. But he's been the last 3 or 4, he's been their special advisor to the UN Director General. So he's like another one of those people that's always there. He's always behind the scenes, and he's always doing stuff, but he kind of goes unnoticed.
I wonder if Jeffrey Sachs is related to Alexander Sachs. Who is, how do you spell that? Sachs.
Sachs. He graduated from Columbia. He worked with, this is research I've done a while ago, but he was with the, hey kitty.
Alexander Sachs is a guy that Mark Kulak talks about a lot, who Jeffrey Sachs was the current pope too. Alexander Sachs is the guy who delivered the letter from Albert Einstein to FDR that started the Manhattan Project.
Huh.
And is Bill Barr's grandmother's brother-in-law.
Huh.
Well, honestly, the kitty. I'm sorry, my cat Betty. Like, she hasn't gotten attention for a whole hour.
It's awful.
She's like over here doing like barrel rolls on the side.
She's like, you should rename her Chuck Schumer.
She needs a lot of attention. But yeah, Jeffrey Sachs is it.
Yeah, do you know the answer to this question? Is it the Jeffrey Sachs that shut up the shock therapy system?
I don't think so, but I don't know. I mean, he's contemporary. He's still like, oh my God, cat, stop. He's still active and yes, to the Rockefeller.
Right.
thing.
The Rockefellers are involved at everything.
Well, that's the Rockefellers and Peter Daszak are, I mean, they're as intertwined as can be. I can't quite speak on all of this yet, but like I said, I've got a project that I've been putting the work in on, and it'll be coming out later this week, and it's probably gonna get me killed, to be honest. But
that's good.
It's worth it, honestly. At this point, my mom's like always like, "You're gonna get killed someday," and I'm like, I don't want to get killed, but if it happens, at least I was trying to do something right, for the world. It's at this point, like, would I rather like not put this stuff out there, or would I rather I can't go back to watching American Idol and like not care.
We don't want you to get killed. I think that there are strategies to not get killed. One of them is to kind of vomit your stuff out as quickly as you can, so that people don't think that you're holding anything back.
Right.
Oh well, I do have a dead man switch. I have 2 actually, and I'll probably be setting up a 3rd soon. Like I said, I've been working behind the scenes for the last for about the last 2 or 3 months. I'm basically building my own Wikipedia.
And how are you doing that? Because I've been talking to a lot of people about that, and I
built out a database.
Okay.
And I'm using. Hold on, let me look at the program. I'm teaching myself all of this as I go, which is why some of it's taking a while. But
see, Lauren, he wants us to end the show pretty much so you can get this out tonight, finish your research, and push it out.
Well, I can't. I mean, it will be towards the end of this week, but it's getting done. That's the whole thing. I know I keep talking about it, but it's happening. There's some things that still need to come together, but they're coming together. So,
do you need help? Do you need a few weaponized autists to join your brigade? So we could send some to you. Wow.
My dream, like if I could do anything in this world, I would be able to fundraise enough to like build a little bunker and bring a few people in and just like wreck people's days. Honestly, this is like, what are we looking at here?
The reason I'm bringing this up is because I've been looking for ways to catalog this stuff, and Richard Grove. I thought this was a private thing, but Tracy pointed out the fact that on his tragedyandhope.com website, he has this thing called The Brain, which is interesting because I met the guy in the 90s who actually wrote this application. But what it does is it allows you to create these web-based mind
maps.
And you can.
That's really cool.
So
and Richard's done a deep dive on all of these guys going back several centuries.
Right. So here's his.
Link to this, dude.
All right. I'm clicking. Here's his Council on Foreign Relations map. All right. And the thing is about all of these links is that each one of them has a web page associated with it. Now, most of these things are just Wikipedia pages because he's kind of put these things together as quickly as possible. But it could go to a web page on your website, that has your research on it.
Right. Well, I'm still trying to kind of figure out how exactly to present it, but I think I've basically got that template laid out where it would kind of be as a wiki page with the links to the. My cat
right,
is losing her mind right now.
and what?
Stop. Sorry.
Just because this is kind of my bailiwick, like what are you building this database in?
I'm using SQL and XAMPP.
Okay. Well, XAMPP is a display.
Well, that's layer. So I don't know how to talk about this. Okay,
I'll talk to you about it. I'll talk to you about it offline.
I was just going to pull the nerd bell.
Okay.
I'm never going to be able to talk about this well with people because I'm like learning it my own way. It's going to be held together by like popsicle sticks and rubber bands, but it's going to work. Damn it. So
yeah, it's I probably can be.
If I can put the product or not the products because it's going to be free. But I'm hoping if I can put it out there and show people what it is I'm trying to do, maybe I can get like some like financial backers or like people who can like kind of.
Well, I want to help you along those lines, and I think you've already been talking to people that I've been talking to along those lines. So let's do that offline and keep the conversation going, as they say.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
But right, so people are asking how to find that. So that's the easiest way to explain it.
Tragedy and Hope. Cool. A new website for me to look at. I love it.
Oh yeah, and they do a show every Sunday night.
Yeah, called Grand Theft World. Which is kind of it rambles on for hours and hours, so I usually just turn it on and then I start cleaning my house.
I'm just listening.
On Monday, Richard does really deep dives on all this stuff. So they'll show a news story and they syndicate a bunch of other researchers. So you would recognize some of the people who they'll throw, like who covered this story. I'm sure they'll get into the Cuomo thing and throw to somebody else's coverage. And then if they have any original documents, like what you just did, they'll pull that up, go through it, and just kind of make the case to back it up with the facts and teach people too how to research.
Right.
That's so my hope with it, with what I'm building is to, I still want to put out articles and things like that I write, but I would rather try to kind of like collect the information and put it out there for people who do write about stuff or who do research kind of thing. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Bill Taylor does a good job, and Bill Taylor is building everything in WordPress. And the reason that I'm kind of leaning in that direction is just because it is a well-structured relational database that's got taxonomies, which is basically categories, ways that you can, and you can create those things in an ad hoc way, which means that the data is really portable. So you may build everything in a program like WordPress, but at the end of the day,
thanks, Mike.
You can take that database.
Go ahead, Peter. Sorry.
You can take that database and you can port it to any kind of other application that you can think of. So it's just a way to organize things without having to go learn SQL and build your own database. It's because
my problem is that anytime I want to do something, I always want to do it all the way. So I'm like, well, I guess now I have to learn SQL, and I guess I have to learn how to. I don't know. You don't have to learn. You don't have to learn SQL. I mean, it's a rabbit hole that everybody used to go down in the '90s, because in the '90s, literally, we had to, like, if you built. When I started building a website for Fox, there was no way to connect a database to a web page. That is, right.
So we had to actually invent how to do that. That's no longer the case. Everything is modular and conformable. And so there's the choice isn't whether or not you have to build a tool or not. It's like, which of the 5,000 tools that are available should be the one that I'm going to go use. I
definitely like to talk to you about that more than
what
I'm doing right now is like complicated.
I love SQL, but people make careers out of just building SQL databases without putting any data in it, just building them. Anyway, I'm here to help.
No, I love it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay.
It's kind of been the weirdest thing about everything. I'm coming up on on March 9th last year was when I posted my first tweet that was any sort of research based. So I'm coming up on about a year of doing this.
Really?
Yeah. So it's
what a year.
No kidding. If you'd have told me this time last year, that I'd be doing what I'm doing right now, I'd have laughed in your face. But here we are.
That you would have been banned off of so many platforms.
Right. That'd be
you're on a tear. You
enemy number one. Yeah.
You've done way more damage than people like Milo took years to get banned, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
But he didn't do anything close to the research that Lauren's doing.
No, he was just a provocateur. Yeah,
he's culturally dangerous, but people that are willing to dig in and surface all this stuff and make these connections clear are way more dangerous.
Mm-hmm. I think Milo was kind of. I mean, he and Alex were kind of the canaries in the coal mine, obviously, because they have pretty abrasive, and I say that with love, but they have abrasive ways of presenting things and with talking about things, and love them or hate them, take them or leave them. They're not gonna hide what they think, and I tend to have that same sort of mentality, to be honest. Especially as I was kind of gaining a platform out of nowhere on Twitter, I didn't really know how to I didn't pull my punches and stop. I'm gonna kill her. I'm gonna kill
Take
my
her
cat
back
today.
to Burger King and leave her.
She has a little scratching post, and she's going nuts on her. She's so mad that I'm not paying attention to her. But in hindsight, I mean, the thing I actually got banned for on Twitter was making a joke about suicide by jet ski. You know what I mean? Of all the things that they could have pinged me for, they were like, I made a joke about if I die in anything other than a freak suicide, a jet ski accident, investigate my death. And that was as I was putting out the Maiden Gate stuff, which was a wild time. And, that's what they dinged me for. And so it's wrong.
Should we go down that Maiden Gate road? Or
we can.
Tracy?
Not a whole lot of developments with it lately. I mean, Matt Brainerd brought it all to the table as it was kind of unraveling. They stole the election, so here we are.
Yeah, they stole the election. I tweeted out this week that I think all three of us are in the same chat where people were doing research on the election, and there are people in there that are already talking about like running Tucker Carlson as a candidate in the next election. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking I'm in the chat room where they were doing all of the research on the election fraud, and they were compiling it for all of the people that needed it. And there's people talking about the next election like elections are a real thing, and it's just kind of a little bit.
Well, that and running Tucker, like, come on. Guys.
Yeah, well, it's like, what planet are you on? It's like
Tucker is. First of all, I don't think has any interest in being a politician. He's doing very well, doing exactly what he's doing, and doesn't have to be in, doesn't have to be in Congress or the Senate all day. So I could not
more money and more influence doing what he's doing.
I couldn't see him going into politics ever, personally, and I wouldn't want him to. I don't dislike Tucker, but I don't really trust him. I think he's just I think he does like a good job, but I don't.
And anybody who does such a good job of confirming my bias,
right?
I always have like a giant red flag on them. It's like every once in a while you have to say something that I disagree with.
Operation Mockingbird.
Yep.
Yeah.
It very well could be. So let's not elect journalists.
Well, the truth is that Tucker's father did run Voice of America for 6 years, and Voice of America was the original line item for the Smith-Mundt
act that prohibited
the Smith-Mundt section of the Defense Appropriation Act, which allocates funds for American-produced propaganda. And then there was the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, which a lot of people talk about, and that combined with some other things that were post-9/11 legislation, which would allow the Central Intelligence Agency to start producing propaganda in the United States of America for the consumption of American citizens.
Let's just say legally, because they were already doing it. This is
right.
the argument they get when people bring it up, and if we had just not gotten rid of that, everything would be fine. And it's like, guys, it was always happening.
Right.
What are you doing? Sorry.
So
they were always, see, here we go. See, they were always lying to us.
Yeah. So the first three presidents of American, or the first Sarnoff and who was the other one? Paley. Came straight out of the OSS and the Air Force, I think. And then CBS guy, there were a couple of presidents in like 18 months before the CBS guy showed up, and he was also a Army intelligence person or military intelligence person.
Biden's Belton Road show. I like that.
Yeah, you should check it out. It's on every day from noon to 2.
Live. I've seen it. I think I followed that person on Gab.
George Webb. I don't know who's operating the account right now.
I think I'm supposed to be on their show next Tuesday.
Excellent.
USAGM
operates Voice of America. Voice of America operates Radio Free this and that. Yeah.
Well, that's like when you start, it's like anywhere you go, if you find like a thread and you start pulling it and unraveling it, you realize just how much like it's all connected and how incestuous it all is. That's what someone earlier was like on Gab. I was like talking about how like Democrats are evil, and I was like it's two wings on the same fucking bird. Like they're not, pardon my French, but like
that's the game, isn't it?
I kept falling into that trap too, especially during like election time, and I think that's fair because it's the election. But like, it's not like Republicans are like some bastion of like good against evil. They all are terrible. Like they're literally all terrible.
Right, and I think that this latest impeachment just showed that it's the Uniparty. I mean,
you're either in the club or you're not.
Here's my breakdown. You have Americans and you have communists, and the Americans are not in power. The communists are in power, and you've got people who call themselves Republicans and Democrats, but roughly most of them are communists.
Do you really think they're communists, though, Peter? You think George Soros' end game is global communism? Workers of the world unite.
I think it's one world government. Yeah, I think you have one. I think you have the people who believe
it's not about worker empowerment. It's not.
Yeah, it's not communism.
It's not actual communism.
Feudalism or neo-feudalism, perhaps.
Well, communism has always been a cover, though, for one world totalitarian government.
Right.
But they're doing it under the capitalist rubric as well. That's what we're just saying. It's these two parties that we believe this is the dichotomy.
All right, so let me just say, there is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. All men are created equal on one side, and then there is the which represents individual sovereignty, right? And then you've got the state sovereignty side, which combines. I mean, you could call it fascist. It's probably more fascist than communist because what you've got the corporate oligarchs inextricably connected to the functioning governments in order to achieve this kind of one world government thing.
Right.
And if you look at the world through that filter, things become a lot easier to sort out. It's like, oh, why is Mitch McConnell married to a Chinese woman and going after Donald Trump? And it's like, well, because they're not really acting in the best interest of America.
No, why is she made transportation secretary?
I was reading about Mitch McConnell last night on WikiLeaks, and I was like reading back when he was just singing Obama's praises about progress in Afghanistan back in 2012. I mean, he's
a player.
What is it, George Carlin? I mean, everyone always makes the quote, but it's big club and you're not in it. It's absolute truth. It's like that's the thing that gets me the most frustrated about Democrats, Republicans, left, right, whatever, is that they'll sit there all day in Congress or whatever, and they'll shake their fist and go, you just wait until we're the minority right now, but we wait till the Republicans take back the House. We're going to wipe the floor with you guys. And then as soon as they take it, then they just switch that, like, they just shake fists and go, oh, we tried. Sorry, guys. And then both sides do it, and then nothing gets done, which I guess is better than nothing. Honestly, I'd rather a shitty.
You'd rather a real dead law.
Except every once in a while, somebody gets thrown in jail for the rest of their life, like Julian Assange, without any due process, and stuff happens.
McConnell. I mean, allegedly, McConnell was the one that pressured Trump not to pardon him. And that's why I was reading WikiLeaks. I'm like, what does Assange know about him?
A lot, probably. But I mean, this past week, the case that was put on by Trump's attorneys pretty much laid bare what you just were mentioning, Lauren, where this whole thing is predicated on Trump incited violence and encouraged it, and they just played that clip. I don't know if it was clipped down for Twitter and went longer, but I saw 9 minutes of Democrats just talking about fight back, fight. This is the fight of our lives. We're going to keep fighting, fight. And then they'll turn around and pretend that never happened. It's all acting.
Well, and I mean, you also have like celebrities like Madonna saying, I want to burn down the White House, and Johnny Depp being like, I mean, granted, I know he got all abused by Amber Heard, but whatever. He's like, when's the last time when someone assassinated a president?
An actor assassinated a president.
Or an actor, right. It's just like,
shut up.
Does that make Trump Lincoln?
Yeah, supposedly.
I mean, there's a lot of us who wished that he had become Lincoln. But
they just imagine, though, that they say this stuff out into a vacuum and then it goes away, and then they don't have to, there's no repercussions for that. And I don't ever want to fall into the, I don't want to fall into the mistake of going after people for saying stuff that I disagree with and saying, well, they need to be canceled or whatever. Because again, I believe in absolute free speech where someone has the right to say that. But I also want to be able to have the right to say, shut the fuck up, Johnny Depp, and not have my Twitter deleted, right, in retaliation. It's kind of like at the end of the day. So
somebody just asked a question about what level of psychosis explains the House impeachment managers. This is a trap, okay? And my advice is don't fall into it, okay? George Webb, I think, coined this phrase originally, which is that it's a school play, and that these things are designed to be consumed in the media. These people are not psychotic; they're actors. They're playing a role. What they want is they either want to get a reaction out of people who disagree with them, or they want to confirm the bias of people who already agree with their opinions. But it doesn't have anything to do with governing. It only has to do with media and the manipulation of the public through the media. Everything else, it doesn't, and you have to look at it that way. So whenever I hear somebody say, oh, Nancy Pelosi is crazy, Nancy Pelosi is not crazy. She says what she says with malice aforethought. She understands exactly what she's saying. She knows what the psychological impact of it's going to be. She's a genius. Okay, and if you don't acknowledge the fact that she's
for 30 years,
if you don't acknowledge the fact that this is a kind of genius, okay, then you're just going to go around mad the rest of your life and not being able to do anything about it. So give her due. She's an evil genius. She's a bad guy in a Bond movie. She knows exactly what she's doing. And as long as we assign words like psychotic or crazy, or same thing with AOC. AOC is not stupid.
I was going to say that too. AOC is not stupid. She is an actress playing a role, but she knows it's, she played victim. I mean, they're rewriting language. The other day, I mean, Ilhan Omar literally tweeted, weakness is strength or whatever, or vulnerability is strength or something like that, when AOC was saying, like, I thought I was going to die. They're just rewriting language and the way that we're supposed to perceive, like, weakness isn't strength, it's weakness. Like, but they're literally rewriting, they're trying to rewrite the definitions and the textbooks.
Well, they do it all the time. I mean, I think, Tracy, you could probably correct me if I'm wrong here, but a liberal is somebody who believes in life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and all men are created equal. That's kind of the textbook classical liberal. And there's a lot of people in the United States right now who call themselves conservatives who believe that. And that's because we've allowed, what do you want to call the communo-fascists or whatever we've decided the other side actually is. They've grabbed that moniker. They call themselves liberals. They're not liberal. They're Nazis. They're communo-Nazis. They're the best of Joseph Stalin and Adolf Hitler all rolled up in a nice Hollywood tarball. And we're the liberals. So when Benny Johnson and Charlie Kirk and Aunt Candace Owens are always saying, oh, we got to own the libs. No, you got to own being a lib. You're a lib, I'm a lib.
Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, we can just call them statists if that helps.
I like that.
It's useful language.
They're sidists, right?
But that needs too much explanation. If I'm like, you're a statist, you worship at the altar of big government and the state, and you think they're here to save you. This is why you gave Andrew Cuomo all these awards, including an Emmy award for his handling of the virus, when we know now that they were lying about it.
The irony of him writing that fucking book too. It's like, so here, it kind of reminds me of this. I'm going to do a college football metaphor here, but it kind of reminds me. I went to Auburn in the year when Cam Newton was there and we won the national championship and everyone was super excited. And Gene Chizik was our coach. And so Gene Chizik took all of the success that basically Cam Newton and Nick Fairley and a handful of other, absolutely stellar athletes that we had on our team. He then wrote this book that was like, this is how I did this as the coach. And then like a season later, we went 3-9 and everyone was like, it wasn't you. You didn't do that. None of that was you. And you were actually a terrible coach. Then he got fired. And it reminds me of Cuomo. Like Cuomo's like, this is how we did all this. And it's like, actually, no, that was just people cooking the numbers to make you look kind of good and the media sheltering you. Like, but nice book, dude. Hope you made a bunch of money.
He did.
I don't think that people should be able to write books while they're in office.
It's the one thing that you're allowed to do.
I feel like
you're not allowed to take money for speeches or anything like that, but you can make money writing books. So I think the senators that wrote the two most verbose, let's say, senators as far as book writing goes were the late John McCain and the current Bernie Sanders.
Bernie.
Millions, and how many houses is that book worth?
Bernie is he's a capitalist for sure.
Oh, totally. Oh, he's a cheapskate too. Those mittens were given to him for free.
I know. And then he granted, I think they donated the money, but then they're like, oh, let's slap the picture on his sweater and sell it for $70. Like,
of course. AOC does the same thing. Doesn't she have one that says like eat the rich?
Yeah, she does. And one of them is part polyester and spandex, which is a petroleum based
they don't understand
material.
I don't understand any of that. If you told her that her computer had petroleum in it, she'd be like, what's that?
I know. I was like, oh, what do you think happens when you go get your oil changed in your car, dude? Like, what do you think?
She didn't know what a garbage disposal was.
She grew up in New York, and now she works in Washington, D.C. She's never owned a car.
Well, that goes back to what you just said about the garbage disposal thing, though. Like that was an act. That was 100% an act. Like, you don't know what a garbage disposal is. I don't care.
I did check with people that live in New York, and a lot of apartments don't have garbage disposals. Because that was my first thing. I'm like, oh, this is horseshit. Like, how can you? And she worked in a kitchen. So I texted some of my friends that worked in kitchens and stuff. And I was like, did you guys have garbage disposals in your restaurant kitchen? No. I'm like, oh, huh. But didn't her family move to Connecticut or something? Peter, wasn't her whole backstory is kind of BS?
Yeah, she went to some private
she's like,
school.
I'm from the Bronx. And it's like, no.
I feel like Michael Knowles blew that up.
Yeah, I think he did.
He did, and John Cardillo did too. They got into like a big tiff on Twitter for a while, which was really funny. But she was, basically, I mean, anytime anyone, she'll attack and attack and attack people. And then as soon as anybody turns it back on her, she's like, how dare you? I am just a poor young woman trying to make it in DC.
Woman of color.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Latinos are black. Okay.
Oh, this is a fun game. I know the answer to this. Do you guys know which presidential son has a tattoo of the Finger Lakes on his back?
Oh, me.
Oh, yeah. I am Demos.
Yes, that freak show.
Yes.
Hunter Biden.
Hunter Biden, yes. I'm waiting for Hunter to get pardoned.
Well, he got a book deal.
Oh, yeah, he won't get pardoned until the day before the end of Biden's reign, whenever that is. What do they say? 2 years or a year and 2 years and 1 day or something? 2 years and
1 day.
Yeah.
And then Kamala can come in and run it for 10.
Right.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Well.
Whatever is left.
I know.
So, so if she took over before 2 years, it would count as a term?
Yes.
Is that how it works?
The 22nd Amendment. I posted it on Gab a while ago because I had said on here a couple times, like, I think he's making it.
All your Gabs.
No, I know. But I can pull it back up as my point. But just go read the 22nd Amendment. It makes it really clear who's eligible to hold the office. And they mention if you filled in for somebody else's term, if you've completed more than 2 years of their term. So he's got to go 2 years and a day.
Right. Didn't she get like less votes than Buttigieg?
She dropped out before she was even in a primary, Peter. I mean, I'm telling you, we live in a Chandra Rhimes television show. I don't know why everybody doubts me on this.
No. I'd feel more comfortable if Chandra was the president. At least I'd know.
Yeah, she gets stuff done.
Right. At least I'd understand who's in charge.
Yeah, I mean, she knows some interesting things. If you ever watch that show Scandal, there's a whole deep state side to that thing, which is pretty interesting.
Always pretty predictive programming.
Mm-hmm.
And her I think it was Cornell when she gave the commencement speech, and her message to the audience was, "Don't be an asshole."
Yeah,
I mean,
it was good advice.
Yeah, I mean, you should probably not be an asshole. We're really looking at it. I can't.
I've already failed on that one.
Yeah, well, same.
See, Chandra would have a somewhat on this heroine. Yeah, that's true.
She's the one that did Grey's Anatomy, right?
Chandra would have never cast Kamala.
Right. She did Grey's Anatomy and then did Scandal and How to Get Away with Murder.
I never watched either How to Get Away with Murder or Scandal, but I did watch Grey's Anatomy, and I had never seen it before, and I watched like the first 9 seasons.
Seasons?
Well, there's like 20, but I watched like 9
on?
seasons. And then, spoiler alert, if anyone doesn't want to have season 9 of Grey's Anatomy spoiled for them, turn down your volume now. But like all of a sudden, they get into this horrible plane crash, and like half of the main characters die horrifically. And then like I rage quit that show then and there.
That sounds like a contract renegotiation strategy.
Either that or they were getting in trouble. If you'll remember, the cast of Lost, they all lived in Hawaii during the filming of that, and a couple of them got DUIs, and the state was like, they need to stop this right now. So I think it was Michelle Rodriguez that got another DUI, and so they just killed her on the show. And it's like anytime somebody died, I was on there being like, did they get a DUI? Like, what was going on here? Was that supposed to happen, or did JJ have to rewrite the script?
I think my favorite person getting written off a show was Chef on South Park.
Aw.
Well, he went,
yeah.
Scientology.
Well, what about that whole Mandalorian hoo-ha that happened this week? What's the girl's name who was on the show? Somebody had a great tweet. It was like, I think it was Pax Dickinson had this great tweet where he was talking about how everybody is jumping to the defense of a woman who is working for satanic pedophiles and previously made a living beating the crap out of other women. Trad was his comment.
I mean, she seems like a good enough person, but yeah, again, like she worked for Disney. I mean, it's the role of a lifetime, I guess, all of that, but it's kind of like, I mean, it's kind of like now when, like the other day, Tucker was like, I'm picking on Tucker now, but Tucker was like, they're trying to take me off Fox. They're trying to cancel me. And it's like, I really am running out of sympathy for people that are getting canceled at this point. Like, you knew by entering into their domain and abiding by their rules, you know there's a set of rules you have to abide by, and you knew you were setting yourself up for failure. And there is alt tech, there are alt platforms. It's going to be a hell of a lot harder for you to make your way in the world by choosing the more difficult path. But at the same time, like, people who are like, oh, I got a new platform on Twitter, and then come to Gab and act like everyone should give a fuck who they are because they had X number of followers somewhere else. Like, no one cares. Like, literally no one cares. Like, everyone here is in the same boat as you. You're not special for that. And I think there's like a lot of chips in people's shoulders on Gab because of that. Because like,
well, you can say that because you've walked the walk. So.
Well, I mean, and I'm even guilty of it. Before, when I first got deplatformed from Twitter, I was double posting on Gab, but I'll be honest, I was kind of using Gab as more like a dumping ground. And then I realized like how much that community was embracing me and how much I realized I could be a lot happier and not be fighting uphill if I just embraced the community that was already embracing me and telling me, hey, here's everything that you want right here, have it. And so I just decided to embrace it fully. I haven't made a new Twitter account since last year. I do miss the timeline, but like, who cares? I cannot in good conscience actually continue to make accounts over there and continue posting over there and give them my like clicks and research and views if I believe what I believe about Twitter, which I do. So
I spend a lot less time on Twitter than I used to because it's just not as interesting.
It's not. I mean, it's a echo chamber, and I think on the other hand, Gab kind of has the same problem. It's not as bad as Parler was, but you know, it is a lot of people with like-minded thoughts. But we're starting to get some like trolls on Gab, and I'll be honest, I kind of love it. Like, let's play. But
trolls and spam bots have made their way onto Gab.
They seem to have gotten the spam bots in the last couple of days. They've gotten those a lot more under control, which is good. But you know, I mean, what I think is a team of like 6 people putting this together, or 6 or 8. I mean, the fact that they're pulling off what they're pulling off, honestly, like I have to, every time I get frustrated, I'm like, you know what, man, like I can't do what they're doing. And they're actually, you know, there's a reason why Parler's gone and Gab's still here. And there's a reason why Telegram is starting to monitor what people are posting or, you know, putting out like,
well, Telegram
saying like they're monitoring your direct messages now and you can be deplatformed for that. It's like, what the fuck?
Well, yeah. Well, Vlad, who owns or runs Telegram, he full disclosure, he's a member of the World Economic Forum.
No shit.
Yeah. So
I'm not on Telegram.
So there's that.
Mostly, I'm a boomer, and every time someone's like, "You need to be on this platform," that was another thing about Gab is like posting across multiple platforms is in itself a job. Like I have my site, I have my Gab. I haven't been able to post on YouTube in a while, but I have like Gab TV and BitChute and all that. And by the time I try to get everything up on all of these things, like that takes a couple hours just in and of itself. So people are like, join Telegram. I'm like, I can't. Like,
Yeah, that's why I love this StreamYard thing, because we're on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope twice, Twitch, and what's the other one, Tracy?
D-Live.
D-Live.
We're on.
Yeah, there is nothing like that for posting across all the platforms.
Right. If they made that, that would be stellar. But
Yes.
I have some back end stuff set up for streaming across. Just these last few weeks have been a bit hectic, but
well, you're trying to
all about to start happening.
You're trying to blow up the WHO spot. So
well, that can be because I can see what's happening. I can see what they're doing. Like Peter Daszak the other day was like, "Yeah, it looks like COVID might have been here longer." I'm like, yeah, no shit, dude. You wrote the paper that said it was here already. Like, you wrote that back in 2017. It's just so obvious. It's so transparent.
Right. Well, do we get to a point, though, where everybody says, you know what, this wasn't as serious as we thought?
I'd probably not. I was asking myself that question the other day. I'm like, so what is my actual goal here? Is it to like, I don't know. I just want people to know. I guess whatever happens from there is on them, but I just want people to know what's going on. So I don't know. It's so frustrating.
You don't know, you do know. You do know. You want people to know what's going on.
I do know. I just,
It's for me, it's always about scope. I mean, I've talked to George Webb and other people about this before. It's like Tracy and I started going down rabbit holes, which like led us into the occult, and it led us into like first millennium Christian history. And, there's a lot of rabbit holes you can go down, and they just keep going back. They go back to Atlantis. They might go back before Atlantis. I mean, you can pick a conspiracy and then just keep pulling on the thread. And the reality is that unless you have a life to dedicate to trying to chase these things down, most people just don't have the attention span. And so you really do need to figure out a way to pick the subject, the thing that would be a book or it would be an article, and then figure out how to put a fence around it, and then package it in a way that somebody will go out and consume it. Because a lot of times the problems are just so complicated. And they kind of bank on that. They kind of bank on the obfuscation through just a huge amount. I mean, I think there's been 4,000 books written on the JFK assassination.
Right. 4,000?
I think 4,000. Yeah. I mean,
I believe it.
And my guess is that, across those 4,000 books, the real story exists in there someplace, and then there's probably 15 versions that have nothing to do with reality.
Right.
And then you have to go and figure out which ones are real and which ones are not. I mean, my guess is you could probably write a PhD on just JFK assassination publishing without having an opinion on the assassination itself.
Right.
And that's what we're dealing with right now. Like, what's real, what's true, and then how do you package that in a way that you get people's attention and that they're actually, I don't know, have some agency or do something about it.
Well, that's the thing is like when you try to tell people that there's like a global conspiracy of all these people that you know and trust who are trying to, implement a one world government that has depopulation in mind and dehumanization in mind. When you try to tell people that, they say, well, you're crazy or you're mentally ill or you're insane, because
how could you possibly believe that?
Accepting that reality. I mean, it's like the first time I had like the crack in my reality when I was still a Democrat. I mean, like it changed. It hurt me kind of, because I realized that what I knew was not true, and just something that I had spouted. I hated Donald Trump, and then I realized I didn't know why I hated him, and just like kind of coming to that realization, it hurts and it's scary and it's shocking, and it's a lot easier to go, you know what? No, you're just crazy, than to try to accept that your reality is something entirely different. Even if all the answers are right in front of you and you can, there's a trail you can follow. It's like the same thing with Alex Jones. It's like Alex sounds like a crazy person because he doesn't try to ease anybody into it. He doesn't try to say, okay, well, you remember that guy? Well, this guy and this guy, they're together, they're working on this or whatever. Like, he's just like, it comes at you like a fire hose, and you're like, holy shit. But he's been talking about it for 20 years. So he doesn't feel like he has to, I guess, pull his punches or watch his language or ease people into it. He's like, you either know what you know what's up or you don't, kind of thing. I think.
Well, this is why Peter and I have talked about kind of building this foundational path for people to take, where we don't start with, hey, what if I told you that the world is controlled by this evil cabal of people that want to keep you all enslaved and take away all your possessions? Right. That's kind of hard.
How do I put this gently?
Right. But if you can just start by saying, Andrew Cuomo was a hero last year, lauded everywhere, winning awards, writing these books. He was always the antithesis to Trump, right? They would carry his press conferences over Trump's, and he knew how to handle this.
Everyone praised him. Everyone said he was the,
he was the COVID genius. He figured this thing out. They loved his harsh, like straight talking press conferences, which were no different than Trump's.
No, that was the craziest thing to me, is like, if you didn't know any better, you would think Cuomo and Trump would get along.
They probably did. I bet you gave him a ton of money over the years. Right. But if you just put yourself in their shoes, and you can turn around and look at the mirror that way, or you go through the looking glass and you're seeing people reacting the same way.
Right.
People on the right thought that Joe Biden was a bumbling idiot who should never be trusted with the nuclear codes, and he was enriching his family. What do the people on the left think about Trump? He's a bumbling idiot who shouldn't be trusted with the nuclear codes, and he's using the office to enrich his family. We're in the same spot. We're just looking at two different things.
Right.
So with this Cuomo, that's when you can get total moral high ground and just be like, that guy killed a bunch of people and then lied about it. Because he was afraid of Trump, Mr. Tough Guy.
Because he wanted to get reelected and he wanted more campaign funds.
Well, they were also talking about making him the attorney general in the Biden administration.
Oh my God.
They were.
I would leave. I would leave. I don't know
who was going to be attorney general.
They were talking about Cuomo for attorney general. That's why all this stuff was scuttled, because this report that came out this week, where the Democrat assembly people who were on this phone call with your girl Melissa, resting bitch face DeRosa, that call happened in September of last year. They're just leaking the contents of the call now in February. So those Democrat assemblymen knew, somebody from the Democrat Assembly, I think, because one of the guys that was going back and forth with her that went on the record.
Or NSA or Mossad or,
they had a couple
China,
Democrats on the record.
somebody monitoring it at Zoom in China.
It's gotten to the point when stuff like this hits the mainstream, like, oh, I just realized I can see the comments. Sorry. I've gotten to the point where anytime something like this actually hits the mainstream or people start talking about it, I'm like, what are they distracting us from? Because like this was all out there before, but why are we talking about this now? I don't know.
It's like when that thing went on with GameStop.
Right.
Ginza Death Star. What's his name? He was on Dark Journalist this week. Tracy, you were talking to me about him. He did a great...
Dr. Farrell.
Yeah, Dr. Farrell. He did a great article that basically corroborated my hypothesis, which was that, that's my job, is to come up with the hypotheses, and then other people go out and actually do all the hard work and figure it out. But the point is that Reddit story was just a cover for some kind of massive financial warfare that was going on. Somebody realized that a bank was overextended on their shorts, and they were going to go buy the stock in order to ruin those people. My guess is that there's probably some political motivation. Maybe one side was backing Biden and the other side was backing Trump, and this is the way that they got back at each other. This is like a financial weapon. Instead of bombing
it, boys fight.
Right. Instead of bombing a city, you just go in and you buy $500 million worth of stock, knowing that you're going to destroy this other company when you do that. And then you use Reddit as a cover story. You use all of the, because you have a bunch of agent provocateurs whose job it is to own the conversation in all these forums. You create cover stories. Reddit is like 4chan. It's like every intelligence agency in the world is probably playing there. They have all got operators, and their contractors all are working out of buildings in Arlington, Virginia, because they're all intelligence operators. Do we include Michigan's governor in this?
I include Michigan's governor. I guess this week it was just the highlight of Cuomo administration admitting that they lied on record and being ratted on by Democrats. But I include
walked back that statement, though. I think
Melissa walked back which statement that they lied.
That's someone told me that. I haven't verified.
I don't know. The New York Post, who broke the story, had 3 other Democrat Assembly members on the record talking about the contents of this call. And one of them was extra furious because he believes that his uncle died in one of these nursing homes due to this neglect. So I think that's why the knives came out. And who knows? It's probably jockeying for who'll be the next governor.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's people are dying of COVID. People are actually dying of COVID, and it is the vulnerable, and it is the people who, live.
Well, they're dying with COVID.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
we don't have to get semantical about it. There are deaths that are being attributed to this thing, and they're coming out of nursing homes. So not only is Whitmer involved, and I don't know what she did with that stuff. I just dislike her, so I assume that she's an evil person. But Rachel Levine, who's now our federal assistant health secretary, was Pennsylvania's health secretary.
Is that the
yes, who let all this stuff go on? And there were numbers that came out.
Well, at least you got rid of her, Tracy.
I know, but now she's going to send that. So, but the numbers in Pennsylvania, I saw the numbers yesterday: 23,000 deaths since the beginning of this, and 12,000 of them in nursing homes or assisted living facilities. That's more than 50%.
Well,
these people are entirely responsible for this. Look at
more than half the deaths are nursing homes,
right?
Of all of COVID.
And the thing is that it's a place like Florida. Rick DeSantis figured this stuff out pretty damn early. So it wasn't rocket science. It's like, who's really vulnerable? Oh, I know, those people that we put in the home so they can be taken care of because they're so vulnerable.
Well, I feel like DeSantis too should have like a leg to stand on here, because I mean, Florida is full of old snowbirds who, there's clearly there have been some deaths with COVID, but
it's a huge state.
It's full of old people, and like they're mostly doing fine. So.
And they've been open for months.
Right. Well, that's Montana just.
Well, COVID doesn't do well in warm in sunshine, right?
It doesn't do well. It doesn't do well at humidity.
Right. Because Arizona got walloped.
So, but I mean, I've made this. It's not really a joke. It's actually true. But realistically, if you think about, they're saying now like the anal swab is the best way to test if you have COVID. The implications of that are that flatulence spreads the virus, and anytime you're in a public restroom and you smell a fart, it could potentially be COVID.
No, but see, you guys laugh when this.
I'm sorry, I can't help it.
No, it's true. It's true, and it might be one of the spreaders. Like, no joke. You go look at SARS. I think there was the SARS outbreak, and I don't remember if it was Hong Kong or South Korea. But what they discovered was this entire apartment building ended up getting it, and they figured out that the pipes were leaking.
That's why I think it spread in New York so well, because they have all that old shitty plumbing.
Yep.
And if you go back and you look, I guess they take sewage samples in different cities or whatever and keep them like in a Rolodex. I mean, it's not really a Rolodex, but metaphorical Rolodex. They're finding COVID in sewage systems from 2019, and they're not telling anybody this, but COVID was in the sewage treatment water a long time ago, and in the year 2019 when it all started. So
yeah, there are a couple countries I think that routinely do that.
Not protect you from a fart. if masks did block the smell of a fart, I would probably wear one.
Right.
To be honest, going into a public restroom, are you kidding me? I think they're disgusting. That'd be nice, but they don't. That's the thing, is they don't actually block that. And that was. I was reading something, it was like the MSNBC thing where they're like, should you wear a double mask or a triple mask? And it was like, if you can see the light through your mask, you need to put another one on. I'm like, if you can see light through it, of course a fucking virus can see through it. What do they think? COVID is like we're talking about stuff that's holding up a finger doesn't even do it justice, because
Luke Rudkowski had a pretty funny video with that guy who's got the red hair waking up, or
JP or something.
Waking up with JP or something. Yeah. And I think he had 6 masks covering his entire face.
Well, Tim and Luke is living with Tim Pool now in his driveway or something.
Right.
But Tim bought these helmets.
RV.
He bought helmets that were COVID designed to wear, and they have filtration and like circulation. And they're gearing up to go do a video where they go out to eat like that and just sit there with their helmets on after the food arrives and kind of just look around and not eat anything, because it's like, how do you get it through the helmet? Although Tim did say for flying, he thinks it's probably more comfortable than wearing a mask on a plane for 6 hours.
Wearing the helmet?
Wearing the helmet. He's like, it's got fans in it, so it circulates air and all this. But the problem is, if you have to sneeze, like you got to rip that thing off your head real quick.
Oh, yeah, because you're like in a little fishbowl.
Yeah, it's just going to blow it right back in your face.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, when you're on a plane, like you're just flying in like recycled sneeze air.
Right,
so,
but the air filtration systems on the plane are so good. They've said that multiple times. Like
but are they?
Chances of you getting COVID on a plane are frighteningly small, unless you go into the restroom, of course, after somebody else.
Well, I haven't flown. I've only flown once since the pandemic began, or whatever. But I flew at the end of last year, and so I flew from Nashville to Atlanta, which is a very short flight. But I ate a snack the entire time, so I didn't have to wear a mask. So
you just kind of nibbled one nibble at a time.
Pretty much.
I wonder.
I'm not used to wearing one. Like people say, like, oh, you get used to them. Like I don't wear one enough to have gotten used to it. I feel stifled. I hate it. I hate like still air. Is like my fan is going all the time. It's like that's like the worst. Breathing in your own air, no way. So yeah, I just like nibbled on some cookies the whole time.
So I was working on while Tracy was thinking of other things in the shower today. I was thinking in the shower. I was thinking, doing a thought experiment and thinking, what is the end game here? Like with making everybody like sit in their apartments and stuff. Are they getting us ready to put us on spaceships, or is this the new version of a zoo? When
you lock down the first world, the third world dies.
So you think they're trying to exterminate the third world?
That's just a fact. They're not going to talk about it, but the repercussions that are the ripple effect, the first world will survive, the third world will not, if this keeps up. Just plain and simple. And then they'll have to implement more like global plans where they get to take all of our money to save the third world, and it's all by design. But they're definitely going to let people die first. They already are. So
how does the locking the first world wind up destroying the third world?
Well, think about it. I mean, you don't have. I know that people kind of make fun of like people who like go overseas on mission trips and stuff like that, but like those are not happening. Those aren't happening. You don't have as much like people aren't getting preventative medical care in like the second and third world countries. They're like people are dying.
Well, Bill Gates is giving them shots that are killing them. Aren't they? Yeah. Didn't that happen like
allegedly?
Yeah, in
India and
in
some African countries.
Well, I could go down that road too, the polio road, but they're experimenting. Experimenting on the third world as well. But you don't have people doing mission trips. You don't have as much foreign aid being sent because people don't have as much money to send. You don't have. There's a lot of food waste that would otherwise have been donated. I mean, like our supply chains, I was honestly very concerned for a while. Our supply chains were very fucked up in the middle.
They still haven't normalized.
No,
like food is doubled in price for me.
But is that inflation or is that lack of supply? That's the question.
I don't know. When you look at stuff like oatmeal and it's like doubled in price, they pumped
$6 trillion into the economy. It shows up somewhere.
Right.
Yeah, and GameStop stock. I haven't spent any of my stimulus check money. I've got it in the bank, and I refuse to touch it because I'm just like.
I used it for a week to see how far it would go. I used it for. I spent nothing except that card for a week just to see how far it would go.
They sent you guys cards? I didn't even get a thank you for all my tax dollars that I paid, and in return, I get nothing back.
Wait, you didn't get a stimulus, Tracy?
No.
I never even asked for it.
No, I don't qualify.
I got this little card.
Hey,
Visa
on the back.
What?
What's the 3-digit PIN?
What's the name of the street you grew up on? Just,
yeah, exactly.
Out of the blue.
It's actually, this thing is, the balance is 0 on it because it took me about 6 days to get to 0.
What's your mother's maiden name? No,
Yeah, these guys are all saying it's inflation. Yeah, I think it's a really clever way to hide inflation, to just be like, I mean, the supply chains are legitimately screwed up. Like, this is not in question.
Right.
But people think, pandemic and stuff is hard to get, and that's why it's more expensive.
Right. Well, that's right. Like, there's so many different moving pieces, and you're like, well, what is actually causing this? Are gas prices going up because of the pipeline? Or are they going up because of other shit? I don't know.
But they don't announce stuff. Like, I heard this through a friend of who I work with, who's a supply chain manager, talking about the difficulty getting stuff into the country. And then I was on our new favorite app, Clubhouse, listening to this room where people were pitching millionaires for help and ideas and stuff like this. And this woman told this heartbreaking story about starting a small business, and she owned a salon, and then her family members were kind of always turning to her for money. So she ended up going bankrupt. So she had restarted her salon right before COVID hit, and now she's kind of screwed. And so there were a couple really sympathetic people in that room. And one of them came on his mic and he said, look, I've got a container full of hair sitting on a freighter that's waiting to get into the LA port. And it's just stuck out there. He's like, as soon as that gets released, I'm going to send you all this hair that I was bringing over for weaves and stuff like that. And I'm just dying. I'm like, wait a minute. There's a whole backup at the port of LA? Yeah. There's all these container ships that are just sitting there. So are they doing that on purpose to choke off supply?
Right. Like, is it by design, or is it?
And why didn't I know that? If I didn't have a friend who does supply chain and then understood what this guy was talking about because of what I'd already known, I haven't seen that reported anywhere.
Well, and it's like they're shutting down like conversation about this online. They don't want people in front of each other, because individually, like, people know what their own, I guess, trade is, or the market that they know the best, but no one's getting in front of each other and talking about it. And they're like, oh wait, no, this is also messed up or whatever. So you don't.
Well, I think that's why the New York Times is trying to infiltrate and destroy Clubhouse. I don't know if you two saw that story this week. And that's what that room on there that's been going on for 3 days is about.
I did tune in to it earlier.
You want to tell the audience about it, Tracy?
Yeah, so Clubhouse, for everybody doesn't know, is a voice app. So it's all people just talking, and you curate a room based around a topic. And then there are people on the speaker stage that can turn on their microphones whenever they want. And some rooms allow audience to raise your hand, which I don't understand why they don't have the little hand emoji. It's the celebration emoji, which I don't get. But anyway, so this app has become popular. It was built by Silicon Valley, kind of for those guys to build out. So it's all invite only at this point.
To like circle jerk about how great they are, to be honest.
Right, but they also have some interesting conversations. Right, and so what happened was
circle jerk's a good description.
It is.
It's one of my favorites. I'm like, it's crass, but everyone knows what it means when you say it.
It explains it. But so the New York reporter from the New York Times, and I can't remember, was she New Yorker or New York Times? I think it's New York Times, Taylor or something. I'm not going to remember her last name, but Glenn Greenwald has a great piece about this.
Taylor Lorenz.
Yes. She wanted an invite to the app, couldn't get one. So then somehow got somebody else's credentials and jumped into a room where a bunch of people are having a discussion. And included in that discussion was Mark Andreessen of Andreessen Horowitz, which is one of the biggest venture capitalist firms. And they staked this app from the beginning. And Felicia Horowitz, who's Ben Horowitz, is the Andreessen Horowitz. Felicia's his wife. And they apparently were talking.
David's daughter-in-law.
Yeah, David Horowitz of the Freedom
Center. I was wondering if they were all.
Yes, they are all related. And so I don't know who else was on the stage, because I just read what Glenn Greenwald's write-up was. But they were having a discussion about what happened with the GameStop stuff. And Taylor Lorenz says that she comes out and she's tweeting about this, that Mark Andreessen just used the R word and totally just slams him over this. And the thing is, what ended up really happening, I guess,
what's the R word?
I'll tell you in a second, because Felicia Horowitz went and corrected the record, and she's like, no, Mark didn't say that. She said, I said that. And I was talking about the fact that the people on Reddit call themselves the Reddit retards. Okay. And that they have one of their phrases that says, we can remain retarded longer than they can remain solvent.
Yeah.
And that's all they were talking about. Like, they call themselves this.
Right.
And so this girl goes and rings the, the cancel bell, come and get these guys. And she's, libeling him or defaming him, I guess, because she's saying it and writing it.
This is Taylor Lorenz?
Taylor Lorenz, yes,
Okay.
from the New York Times. She had to go tattletale on these guys. And so it's blown up, and now there's been a room that's gone on for 3 or 4 days.
In third grade, like someone a retard, so now we have to cancel them for real.
Yes, yes, but it's legitimately what they called themselves. It has nothing to do with like the bad connotation of that word, and so
I'm free speech. Like I don't love that word, but there are times where it gets the point across, and I don't, like it is what it is.
And it was all done in good fun. They weren't. They were calling it. They were calling themselves that.
Right. And it's not a statement on people who are actually like mentally like disabled. It's just, I don't know. But you can't, there's no nuance when you're a part of cancel culture. That's another thing too. This is another big thing that no one really knows about because no one really pays attention to TikTok. But there's a very big TikToker right now who's being canceled. And I'm actually, I'm going to write about it because I want people to know about it and pay attention to it, because TikTok kind of like exists outside, like people don't pay attention to it. The algorithm hides stuff. It's very easy for people to say stuff on there and it kind of just like there's no repercussions in the real world. But there's this girl named Only JS on there. She has over 10 million followers.
How do you spell that?
It's ONLYJAYUS, Only JS. And she's a lesbian. She's like a STEM major, and she basically just copies fun facts off of like Reddit and like fake psychology stuff, and like reads it. She has over 10 million followers. She is very influential. She has a deal with Netflix. She like speaks directly to Gen Z, and she's very manipulative. She's like one of the like kill all men kind of like feminist types. I mean, she's toxic as fuck, but she's very, very, very influential. But a DM surfaced about a week ago where she called someone and I'm only saying this to her, she called someone a faggot, which she's a lesbian now, so I guess she can't get canceled for that. But she called someone that, and then she also called them the N-word lover because it was a white person, but she like insulted them as, I guess the worst thing she could think about them was that they were in a relationship with a black person. She called them an N-word lover. And so she's being canceled for that, but it's all kind of like happening below the radar on TikTok. And like, I want people to know about it because this girl, like she like works with Netflix. She's influential, and like people are like, nothing's going to happen to her. But it's like this girl is she's been like fully in a part of cancel culture for over a year now, has been like beating that drum and waving that banner, and here she is saying some of the worst shit to someone, like calling him a faggot, calling them the N-word lover, like and nothing's like she's horrible, but she has canceled so many people for so much less. And now she's like she got on and like did this like fake apology video where she doesn't wear any makeup and she doesn't have a beauty filter on, and she's like she was like, I said it because it was the meanest thing I could think of saying. And like the meanest thing you could think of is that someone loves a black person. Like, wow. Fuck, yeah. like that's some real racism of the left.
No, you need to write this up and put her down.
That's like real racism. Yeah. And
I don't know. I'm
10 million followers this girl has.
My jaded, one-sided, biased opinion is that everyone is a racist and that it's all a psyop because then everybody has some kind of guilt,
right?
About what they really are, what they really believe, and
is a white hot market right now.
And the reality, and it's just because it's biological. It's like fish school together, and fish don't know what fish look like, and fish don't have mirrors, or I should say, fish don't have mirrors, and fish don't know what fish look like.
You sound like Will Smith's kid.
All of the
Are mirrors real?
Are mirrors real? They're leaks, according to Kurt Vonnegut.
Oh.
But yeah, I mean, I talk about.
Should we cancel her or not?
So I don't think she should be canceled. But
I don't think she should be canceled. I think that
I want to write an article about it, and I want to put it out there so that when people Google her name, that will pop up.
If she's running around with the cancel hammer and hitting everybody she can.
I don't abide by cancel culture, but when I find out that someone who has been like one of the like charging leads for it, the person with a Netflix deal who's getting very rich, like getting rich as fuck being this way, and then like has sent like one of the worst messages that like, it's not like she like sang the word in a song. It's not like she was like, you know, it was a
DM to somebody else
of youthful like ignorance. Like she meant it hard, and anyway, she's being like, I don't think she should be canceled, but again, I would not be mad if that were synonymous with her name forever. How do you know what a fish thinks?
Yeah.
Somebody's criticizing me. I don't. I'm guessing. It's just a wild ass guess, and I could, like all other things that come out of my mouth on this show, I could be wrong. So.
What do you call a deer with no eyes? No idea.
All righty then.
All right. Well, we've been at it for now an hour and 50. So do we turn it over to questions in the last 10 minutes here?
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
All right.
I feel like we've just kind of rambling.
Yeah, that's what we do. These are the Sunday digression sessions.
I like it.
And so
where we just try to figure out what the hell is real.
Lauren has really grown on me. Oh, yeah. Thank you. I'm like a fungus.
What was the name of the place where you worked? The Magic Mushroom or the Happy Mushroom?
Mellow Mushroom. Yeah.
What is it?
It was Mellow Mushroom. It's a really popular pizza chain. It's just like in the South. And no, it's not like pizza gate related. It's just it's how I paid for college. But
do they have psilocybin pizza? Is that what it's all about?
No, it's like it was started in Atlanta in the 70s by two hippie guys. They wanted locally sourced like dough. They make the dough fresh every day. It's actually like a really cool operation. But they started in the 70s. Auburn was store number 9, which is where I worked when I was in college, and it's just a good time.
See,
Mellow Mushroom is amazing pizza. I still get cravings for the pizza. I eat it a lot still. What is my degree in? Oh, don't go there. It's English.
Hey, you're right.
Which I think is a fantastic degree. I don't,
I mean, I wish. Well, I don't regret anything because all of the mistakes that I made led me to here, and I'm very, very happy with where I am right now. But like, I made a lot of mistakes to get here. I think paying $30,000 for an English degree was not my smartest financial decision. To be frank,
it could have been worse.
It could have been worse. You could have spent more on an ethnic studies degree.
I did minor in finance, though.
That was smart.
Well-rounded.
That's good.
So I don't know. Do you guys know what's going on at the Supreme Court this week? I have no clue. So sorry, can't answer you. So what's the most capitalistic non-taxing country out there that is tempting you to move?
Poland.
Okay.
I would go to Poland in a second.
My answer is Florida.
Well, it's true. Florida could declare its independence.
Yeah, the other one would be Puerto Rico.
I'm not convinced I can run faster than the globalists at this point.
Yeah, but you want to stay where you are?
I'm happy where I am.
Here's the thing. I hate what's going on government-wise in California, but I'm looking outside right now, and it's about 63 or 64 degrees outside, and there's some white puffy clouds in the sky, and the weather in California is why people move here, and it's why people put up with all of the bullshit.
I lived there for a year, and the best day of my life was the day I left California.
The best day of your life? Where did you live?
I was in San Francisco.
Oh, well, then. Yeah.
The weather was nice, though. Like, literally, I left, and then, like 2 weeks later, or actually, like 2 days later, it caught on fire. So,
I mean, I'd like to take California back. I mean, the Gavin Newsom, the recall Gavin Newsom thinks 1.5 million votes. I had some people who are involved in politics calling me, talking to me about different people that they wanted to run that they think are financed. I guess Grinnell announced yesterday that he's not interested, doesn't want to do it. But, my pushback to them was that after this last election, if you're not taking the lion's share of the money that you have dedicated to any kind of campaign, if you're not taking the lion's share of that money and applying it to voter integrity and making sure that you've got trained attorneys at every polling place and they know what to do, that you're not going to win. I mean,
we need the next election. We need our people to volunteer to count the votes, not just to be like voter or to be
poll workers and watchers.
Poll workers or like auditors or observers or whatever. Like we need to have people in there actually counting the votes, because I think that was a big problem. What do you think will happen in Cuomo?
I don't know. I mean, I jumped on Ground News to see if the left was covering that story, and they actually were. So I don't know if he's going to be forced to resign or what, but it's hideous. I don't know how you'd step back from this. Do either of you think he's going to have repercussions?
I've been talking to Janice Dean a little bit. She and I have been in contact for a while. And
she lost both of her in-laws, right, in a nursing home in New York.
I need to get back in contact with her because I think that the time is right to strike again.
Yeah, well, there need to be people outside of the mansion, the governor's mansion, and outside of the assembly.
I mean, I wrote this thing on my site. The last time I updated it was last July. When I wrote all this, when I put all this together. I mean, it's been half a year, so I want to collect more info and update it.
Benjamin Franklin said that if you're a pessimist when you're surprised, it's always a good thing. And after 4 years of no indictments in the Trump presidency, no notable indictments on any of the bad things that were being reported, I could guess that nothing is going to happen.
I wouldn't be surprised if nothing happens. I don't know what Trump is going to do next. If Jared keeps having his grip over him, not a hell of a lot.
If he lays low for the next 6 months, there's a good chance that he'll put half the major news outlets out of business because they won't have any audiences. They won't have any views on their television channels. They won't have any subscriptions on their newspapers. They'll go.
I think that's been very telling, like seeing how, I mean, they're literally saying it out loud. They're like, that was it the Jeff Tiedrich or whatever, that like he was like a Trump reply guy that like always he was like, having him off Twitter is almost worse than having him on here. Like they're realizing.
It's too bad you can't short journalists.
Yeah.
Because I'd be shorting journalists right now.
I just want to put them all out of business.
You will. You're gonna.
That's the plan.
Well, like I said, if Trump just lays low for 6 months, there's going to be a bloodbath in the journalism business.
It also highlights. I mean, even like, because there are some smarter like Democrats, and actually some of the people that I agree with the most are like they're far left, but they reject identity politics entirely. And I think we actually, I mean, I don't agree with a lot of like their overall like views of the world, but like they reject the identity politics so much, and it's becoming just like so burdensome. I mean, we're talking to like, I think if we just keep letting them like go on and on about Trump, even though he's not in the public eye, if we keep letting them like change words like chest milk and people with penises and just like keep letting them look fucking stupid. I mean, it's gonna hurt to let it happen. But I mean, I think that a lot of people, I mean, myself included, before Trump got into office, I didn't pay attention. I didn't pay attention at all. And I kind of thought like Obama was like a cool guy and like, oh yeah, he like played basketball. Ho ho, like that's cool. Like that was my like I watched John Oliver and thought I was well informed. So I think now like when you have people actually paying attention and they thought like the Democrats sold them like we're going to be together. We're going to get you $2,000. We're going to solve all this. And they're just realizing how flat everything is falling. I mean, they just spent the last month trying to impeach Trump. They were unsuccessful. No one's gotten any money. I think if we just let them keep doing what they're doing, I mean, whether or not the media is going to report on it, it's definitely, I see a lot of people getting frustrated by it. What do I think about Tulsi Gabbard? I mean, she has a lot of connections to Davos and to the World Economic Forum and with the globalists. I think that she presents things in a very like in a very smart fashion. And I don't necessarily know if I think a lot of these people are just useful idiots. I don't know if I don't think she has sinister intentions. I think she's a useful idiot, but she's got a lot of connections with a lot of like very evil people. So
she's a politician.
Right.
And if she's, again, the red flag for me always is people who confirm my bias, too on the nose. Like,
right.
If they're aiming directly at, they've done a demographic breakdown, they've got their language all sorted out, so they know exactly the way that they're going to present that message, and it just hits me square. I used to, that thing that I used to see as read as euphoric, as like, oh, they think just the way that I do,
Right.
That used to mean me writing a check or,
right.
Or hitting retweet and now what I've done is I've conditioned myself whenever I get that feeling to take a giant step back and go, are they targeting me with that message? Like,
right.
let's go look at their record and see how they really,
fake.
Yeah.
It's all fucking fake.
Right.
All right. Well, that's a good note to end on. So Lauren, you want to tell everybody where they can find you?
You can find me at gab.com/somebitchiknow, or you can find me here with Tracy and Peter every now and then, or you can find me on my website, which is somebitchtoldme.com.
All right.
And you have a link tree on there too, right?
I do. It's linktree/somebitchiknow.
Okay.
So pretty much if you just Google somebitchiknow, I'll show up somewhere.
Very good. All right, everybody.
All right, everybody, and I've put the link to our Telegram, which, Lauren, you're welcome to join, so you can see what Telegram's all about in the description on YouTube, and be sure to check out the locals page as well.
Will do.
All right, very good.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.